I told him, I don't love you anymore, I want a divorce. He just smirked and began his revenge. Men are scum. I never imagined that my husband would ruin my life because I told him I didn't love him again and that I wanted a divorce. Hey, Reddit, for the sake of privacy, I will be using fake names. My husband Dave, male, 35, and I, female, 30, have been married for 3 years now. My marriage to Dave was loveless. I can't remember any day I was actually happy in the course of our marriage. I lost everything because of my stupidity. I don't know what came over that I started cheating on my husband. I thought my husband would fall on his knees and beg me when I told him I didn't love him anymore and threatened to divorce him, but instead of begging, he divorced me instead. Never in my wildest imagination would Ewell have believed that the man I married 3 years ago would be capable of such a dubious act. Truth be told, I married Dave because of his money. I met Dave through an older friend of mine. For Dave, it was love at first sight, but for me, it wasn't. I never wanted to marry Dave since I wasn't in love with him, but my parents assured me that there was more to marriage than love. They told me I would grow to love Dave as time went by, but all that never happened. Dave is a gentle, caring, and kind-hearted man. Physically, he is not my spec. He is short and bald-headed, but he is a very generous man. His generosity is what made me marry him. Dave and I got just 4 months after dating. After our marriage, I discovered that my parents lied to me and that love was an essential ingredient for any marriage to work. Dave is a nice man, no doubt, but I wasn't attracted to him, so anything he does irritates me. The more he tried to make me happy, the more I distanced myself from him. Dave made sure I never lacked anything. He provided me with everything I needed, but all that didn't move me. I wanted more. Dave wasn't a romantic guy, but he always makes sure we go on dinner dates every Friday. I dreaded every Friday night because of the dinner date reason being that I didn't want to be seen with Dave outside. I always felt ashamed any time we went outside together. No matter how I tried, I couldn't bring myself to love Dave. I felt all alone in the marriage. My loneliness pushed me to start having an affair just a year after our wedding. I started having an affair with Tom. Tom is the complete opposite of Dave. Tom is tall, cute, and loving. Tom had everything I wanted in a man, just that Tom was not as rich as Dave. Tom was jobless. I was even the one paying most of his bills. I fell in love with Tom the second I met him. It was love at first sight. Tom has this irresistible charm I can't explain. My affair with Tom continued over the years. Tom would always beg me to leave my husband for him. Initially, I thought that was impossible, but soon I began thinking about everything and concluded that life was too short for me to spend it in a loveless marriage. So I started mapping out my exit plan from the marriage. I started saving money in Tom's account. And I was discreet in my dealings because I knew there was no way Dave would forgive me if he ever found out that I was cheating on him. Tom was a complete lover boy. He always knew how to put a smile on my face. Ever since I started going out with Tom, I glowed differently because it seemed I finally found my soulmate. Even though Tom wasn't rich, he still made sure he spent the little he had on me. Time passes so fast anytime we are together. Sometimes I wish time would just stand still. Tom and I had so many things in common. We viewed life from the same perspective. If only I'd met Tom before I met Dave, maybe things would have been a little bit different. Dave is a realtor, so he was hardly around. He was always on one trip or the other, so I had time to meet with my lover Tom whenever I wanted. Sometimes he does come over to the house whenever Dave isn't around. Everything was going on smoothly until one day when Dave arrived unannounced. I bet it was our nosy neighbors that alerted him. So Dave arrived in the middle of the night on one fateful day without any notice. On that fateful night, Tom was around. I heard the doorbell ring. I was shocked because I wasn't expecting anyone. I decided to go look. And behold, I saw my husband standing outside at the front of the door. I froze for some seconds. I honestly thought I was dreaming. Dave pushed me aside and ran upstairs. It was at that point that it dawned on me that everything was real. Dave ran up and straight to our bedroom. Luckily for me, Tom had exited the room and hid himself in the kitchen. While Dave ran up to our bedroom, Tom quickly ran out from the kitchen into the living room and exited the building immediately. Here's the thing. Tom and I had always joked about this scenario countless times. In fact, we had planned what we would do in such a scenario. Tom and I had come down from the bedroom, so while I was going to check who was at the door, he went to hide in the kitchen because that was the last place anyone would go when they came visiting. So while Dave was rushing upstairs, I opened the door wide for Tom to run out. That was how I escaped being caught on that fateful day. Dave, on the other hand, felt like a fool when he came to our bedroom and didn't see anyone. His spirit immediately weakened. The way he ran up like someone who was about to catch a thief only to be disappointed when he met an empty room. Dave took his time to move from one room to another. He checked all the rooms, even the kitchen and bathroom weren't left out of the search. When he was done, I calmly asked him why he was turning the house upside down and if he misplaced something. All of a sudden, he became dumb. He couldn't utter a word. At that moment, it dawned on me that Dave suspected me and that someone must have alerted him about my affair with Tom. I seized the opportunity and decided to turn everything around. I started crying while accusing Dave of not trusting me. I called him all sorts of names. I told him he was insecure and trying to project his insecurities on me. Dave apologized for his actions. He told me he was sorry and promised to trust me moving forward, but deep down, I knew he didn't buy any of my lies because I knew him too well. At that point, I felt bad for him. Dave was a good man and didn't deserve what I was doing to him. After that experience, I decided to end my relationship with Tom and just make my marriage work. I stopped contacting Tom all through that period, but immediately Dave went on another business trip, and somehow I found myself back with Tom. This time I decided to be very discreet. I stopped Tom from coming over to my place. Instead, I would go over to his place. Tom, on the other hand, was pressuring me to divorce Dave and get half of his property, so that we could be together fully. Truth be told, the thought of divorcing Dave scares me. I don't know if it's because I know I wouldn't get a penny. After all, Dave and I signed a prenup before our wedding, or the fact that things might not work out between me and Tom when he finds out I'm broke and only leaving off my husband's money. Tom asked me to choose between him and Dave. He told me that if I truly loved him as I claimed, I would divorce Dave. What Tom doesn't know is that I might lose everything after the divorce. I have not told Tom that Dave and I signed a prenup before our wedding. I don't think he would take it well if he found out. I don't want to lose Tom, and also on the other hand, I don't want to lose my comfort in all the luxury I enjoy by divorcing Dave. I'm in a state of a fiasco right now. I need advice, guys. What do you guys think I should do? Should I divorce Dave and move on with Tom, or I should end my relationship with Tom and just face my marriage? I would be in the comment section, so please be nice. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm back again. So I read your opinions, but unfortunately, I decided to go on with what my heart says. I decided to divorce my husband so I could move on with my lover. So, on one fateful day after Dave had arrived from one of his trips, I told him, "Dear, I don't love you anymore and I want a divorce." To my greatest surprise, Dave didn't even say a word. He just smirked and moved about his day like nothing happened. The next while I was still trying to figure out what was going through Dave's mind and why he was so quiet. Even though I told him I didn't love him anymore and that I wanted a divorce, Dave's lawyer arrived and slammed me with divorce papers. When I saw him that morning, I was shocked because we weren't expecting him, and Dave never mentioned that his lawyer was coming. When he handed me the divorce papers, I asked him what the paper was for, and he told me to open it so I could see for myself. I hurriedly opened the paper, and to my greatest surprise, it was divorced papers. I was shocked to my bones. I couldn't even believe my eyes. I became dumb all of a sudden. I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I couldn't utter a word. Soon, Dave arrived. He had gone out very early that morning. Immediately he stepped in, he started throwing my things out. At that point, he dawned on me that this wasn't a prank. I held Dave and started pleading. I told him I didn't mean what I said about divorcing him and that I was only joking. It was at that moment that he started talking. He told me how he had been suspecting me for quite some time now and was only looking for the right opportunity to send me out. He reminded me about that day he arrived unannounced. He told me a neighbor and friend had told him that I usually bring one particular guy over to the house whenever he wasn't around. He told me how he pretended to go on a trip just to go lodge in a hotel, and that on that particular day, the neighbor had called him that my guest had arrived, and that was why he stormed the house unannounced. He told me that even though he didn't catch the stupid guy red-handed, there were signs that I had a guest over. He told me how he spotted 2 glasses of wine in the bedroom and also found cheap male underwear that wasn't his in the bathroom. He told me that he had always known I was cheating on him and that he was carefully mapping out his revenge plan. He also told me how he installed a CCTV camera in the house and that he has numerous unclad videos of me and Tom. At this point, my mouth was wide open. I fell on my knees and started pleading for mercy, but he pushed me away and continued throwing my things out. I honestly didn't know that Dave was aware of the fact that I had been cheating on me, but decided to keep quiet. I was perplexed. I honestly didn't know everything would generate to this level. I thought Dave would be devastated and be the one crying and begging me not to leave him. I didn't know he had been planning on how to divorce me for a long time now. I told Dave there was no way I was going to divorce him, but he threatened to release all the unclad videos of me and Tom he had on social media. Desperate to protect what was left of my dignity, I decided to sign the divorce papers. After signing the divorce papers, Dave promised to make my life a living hell. He asked me to watch and see how he was going to ruin my life. I picked up all my things and left for my parents' place. They were shocked to see me because I didn't inform them that I was coming. I narrated everything that had happened to them. To say my parents were disappointed in me was an understatement. The look on their faces says it all. I didn't need a soothsayer to tell me that my parents felt like disowning me at that moment. They called me all sorts of names you can think of, and they asked me to go back and plead with Dave to forgive. I told them there was no need and that I didn't even love him anyway. I told my parents I was in love with someone else, and maybe divorcing Dave isn't a bad thing after all. At that point, my dad lost it and slapped me. He said he would never approve of me getting married to a lowlife who can't even feed himself. My parents asked me to pack up my bags and that they were taking me back to Dave to plead on my behalf. I got so angry at my parents' persistence for me to go back to Dave that I angrily started exchanging words with them. I told them it was their greed that made them push me to get married to someone I didn't love. I told them I would have ended up fine if they had not forced me to get married to Dave because of their selfish desires. I told them I wasn't going back and walked out on them. The following day, Dave arrived at my parents' house. I thought he came to beg me to come back to him and that he had realized that he couldn't leave without me, but unfortunately, Dave's mission was different. I forgot to mention to you guys that Dave was the one who bought the house my parents were living in. After our wedding, Dave gifted my parents a house. On that day, he arrived with security and asked my parents to evacuate the house immediately. Everyone was shocked before we could say a word. The security guy had started throwing my parents' things. The only things my parents came into the house with were their clothes, because Dave furnished the house before he gifted it to my parents. What broke my heart into pieces was when my parents went on their knees to plead with Dave to forgive me and let them stay in the house, but unfortunately, all their pleas went on deaf ears. Dave ignored my parents and continued perpetrating his evil act. I never knew the man I married was capable of such dubious character. I thought Dave was an angel in a human form. I never knew he was the devil incarnate. Only a devil would be so heartless to the point of chasing middle-aged people out of the house he had given them. Seeing my parents wailing broke me into pieces. For the first time, I felt helpless. Never in my wildest imagination did I think that a day like this would ever come. But I bet Dave had always prepared for a day like this because the house receipt was in his name. Thinking about it, everything makes sense now on why Dave refused to give me or my parents the house receipt. At that moment, it dawned on me that I didn't marry a simp. After all, he was always one step ahead of me. Indeed, I was the fool. I joined my parents and siblings in pleading with Dave for forgiveness, but Dave acted like we were non-existent and continued giving orders for our things to be thrown out. With no sign of Dave tempering justice with mercy, my parents and I picked up our belongings and headed to our old house. I felt bad for my parents. From living in a beautiful apartment to now being back to their house that leaks whenever it rains. At this moment, it dawned on me that I had let my parents down. Soon the divorce proceedings started, and it wasn't as I had anticipated. The procedure was mentally draining for me, and worst of all was that Dave made sure he frustrated me. He took everything he ever bought for me, even the engagement ring and wedding rings that I was hoping to sell, and took the money to start up something. My shameless husband took everything. The whole situation kind of revealed who Dave was. It revealed his true colors, and behind that kind of man is a monster. The more time passed, it became clearer that Dave was on a mission to frustrate me. Even the joint savings account we had together. Dave cleared everything. I was now left with nothing. Update. Hey Reddit. I'm back to update my story. I didn't expect it to get so much attention, and I never thought I would make an update. But seeing how invested everyone is, I feel it's best to let you all know what has been going on. Soon, the divorce proceedings were over, and I thought I was finally free from Dave's torture, but I was wrong. A few days after our divorce, Dave still went ahead to leak my unclad pictures on social media. I went through another hell. For days I couldn't step outside. I was ashamed of myself. 3 months after everything had calmed down, I decided to go back to Tom so we could continue our relationship. But to my greatest surprise, the fool told me he was no longer interested and that he had moved on. He told me he now has a serious girlfriend he was planning on settling down with. At first, I thought he was pulling my legs, but soon I realized that he was dead serious when a lady arrived. Tom authoritatively asked me to leave his house. He introduced me to the lady as his cousin. When I asked him about the money I was saving in his account, he told me he had an emergency, so he used the money. At that point, I almost fainted because that was my last hope. I told Tom I wasn't leaving his house until he provided me with every penny I had saved in his account. He threatened to call the cops if I refused to leave. At that point, I wanted to create a scene, but I didn't want to get into more trouble because I already had a lot on my plate. Just as I was about to leave, Tom's girlfriend followed me out and told me how he and Tom had been dating for years. She told me Tom only used me to get some cash. At that moment, I started crying. I felt used and trashed. I went home that day lost and hopeless. I couldn't think straight, and I didn't know what to do. I felt betrayed by the one I loved and risked everything for. At that point, it was like the scale in my eyes had fallen off. I started regretting everything. I felt bad for myself and most importantly, my parents. If I could turn back the hands of time, trust me, I would have done things differently. If I'd learned to love my husband, maybe I would still be married by now, but I let my lust destroy my home. After giving everything careful thought, I realized that I wronged Dave, so I decided to go see him and apologize properly for the pain I had caused him. I arrived at the house and met new faces. When I inquired about what was happening, they told me they were the new owners of the house. Apparently Dave had sold the house. I was told by security that Dave had relocated to another city. I tried getting his new contact details, but no one was willing to give it to me. I called his other number several times, but there was no response. I decided to go to his parents' house so they could at least give me his new contact, and if possible help me plead for him to forgive me and maybe accept me back, but nothing prepared me for the embarrassment Dave's mom gave me. First off, she didn't allow me to step inside. She came out and started hauling insults at me. She even called me a gold digger and accused me of ruining her son's life. She told me how she never liked me from the beginning and how she had a reservation about me. She categorically said she was happy Dave listened to her advice about signing a prenup before our wedding. She said she was glad that I was now back in the slum where I belong. I was dumbfounded by everything she was saying. I told her I was sorry and asked her to please forgive me and give me Dave's contact. She told me that would never happen and that it would be over her dead body. When I saw how adamant Dave's mom was to embarrass me, I hurriedly left the place to avoid any altercation, but I was still determined to talk to Dave. The next day, I met with Dave's childhood friend and pleaded with him to please help me with Dave's new contact. He was blatantly refused at first, but after much persuasion from me, he gave me Dave's new contact information and house address in Los Angeles. After calling Dave several times without any response, I decided to go visit him in Los Angeles. I drove all the way from California to Los Angeles. I know it sounds crazy, but I was desperate. Something told me Dave would forgive, and we can start all over again when I finally apologize for how I wronged him. Soon, I arrived at the residence and I was shocked. I knew Dave was rich, but buying a house in a gated community was another level of richness. I rang the doorbell and a lady opened the door for me. When I asked who she was, she introduced herself to me as Dave's girlfriend. Just as we were still talking, Dave arrived. If looks could kill, I would have been dead by now. He was fuming and boiling with anger when he saw me. He asked me how I got his home address, and just as I was about to open my mouth, he pushed me out of his house. He warned me to stop spamming his phone with calls and messages and that he has moved on. I told him I only wanted to apologize for how things ended between us. At that point, he looked me in the face and told me he would never forgive me and that I should get lost. I was humiliated. I left there with my head bowed on the ground. On my way back home that day, I cried hot tears. I couldn't believe how quick Dave moved on. I mean, it was just 6 months after our divorce and he already had a lady living with him. Worst of all, the lady was pregnant. Maybe I was wrong about everything. Maybe Dave never really loved me as he claimed, because if he did, he wouldn't have moved on as quickly as he did. Honestly, I felt betrayed. That's my story, guys. Everything still feels like a dream, and I hope that I will wake up from this horrible nightmare one day.
I never thought I'd run to Reddit for advice, but here I am. I don't know the next step to take right now. My husband found out about my secret affair, and then he set a trap for me and my app. My husband, Vikram, funny 40, is the definition of an alpha male husband. He's a successful man who likes to be in charge. He never likes to lose control of a situation. So when he found out I was cheating on him, he found a way to make me regret it. My husband and I, Kamal, 32, have been married for the past 10 years. We have 2 children together, a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. I know a lot of people will feel the need to judge me for cheating on my husband when I have a complete family, but I have never really felt complete in my marriage. Marriage is supposed to make one feel complete, happy, and content, but I have never really experienced any of these things with my husband. Happiness became a strange feeling to me almost every day. The only light I was fortunate to see was the birth of my 2 children who completed me in a way, but even that too wasn't enough. When my children go to school, I'm welcomed by that feeling of emptiness all over again. It's not helped that the husband I married does not even notice that. He's a perfectionist who's focused on being at the top and keeping his 6 figures constant. I needed more, so I had to search elsewhere. It was a decision that took a lot of courage and self-doubt, but I had to do it for myself. What I never expected was the consequences that followed. I am a mixed woman from Mumbai, India. My mother is from Canada while my father is from India. Growing up with both ethnicities was a little bit of trouble for me. On one hand, I had my strict father who restricted almost all my activities, and on the other hand, I had my strict mother who did not want to restrict my activities just to spite my father. Yes. I practically grew up in a broken home with barely any love and attention. I grew up doing stupid things just to see if my mother would look into my eyes and tell me how much she cared for me. None of that ever happened. My father, he practically ignored my existence every single day. When I was old enough to get married, my father insisted that he would arrange my marriage for me. I did not want that. I just wanted to go to college, a place far away from my parents, then get my freedom and fall in love with a man I actually like. But none of those desires came true. I was to do exactly what my parents wanted me to do. I could not run away. They would have found me. My father worked at an airport. Of course, he had connections. How would I board a flight and not be seen? I had been desperate to get away, but I was not stupid. I ran to my mother for help, but she told me there was nothing she could do. The first and only time my mother was not ready to fight my father was when I needed her to fight him the most. She turned her back on me and did not look back. The first meeting with Vikram and his family was one of the most depressing moments of my life. Even though I knew I was getting into an arranged marriage, I still expected my husband to show me some sort of friendliness. Instead, Vikram was guarded. He did not even try to impress me. Yeah, I was dressed up extravagantly and forced to take etiquette classes so I could make an impression. 2 more meetings later, my marriage with Vikram was finalized. I had no say in it. I could not even choose the color I wanted to wear on my own wedding day. The man I was meant to marry had not even spoken a single word to me before our marriage. Like, I felt suffocated because I began to feel like I didn't truly deserve to be happy. I always thought my marriage would make up for all the happiness I lacked as a child. Vikram was good looking and wealthy, but none of that really mattered to me. I wanted to know who he was inside. I wanted to connect with my husband on an emotional level, but Vikram did not look like someone who was ready for that on our wedding day. My parents pulled me to the side and warned me not to do anything to ruin the wedding. They were afraid I'd change my mind and run away. I felt like laughing at that very moment. I thought they wanted to at least hug me and tell me how much they'll miss me. Even if it was a lie, I wanted to hear them say it. None of that happened. All I got was threats and unnecessary talks about being a dutiful wife. After the wedding, I was told that Vikram and I were going to move to Australia. Yes, I was only informed after the marriage. No one told me I'd be moving before the wedding. Maybe they thought it wasn't important since my opinion would not matter anyway. And my wedding was horrible. My wedding night had to be miserable. I was a virgin. Yes, I was a very shy virgin who hadn't even kissed a boy's cheek before. I did not know what to expect that night. So I was a nervous mess. When Vikram and I got to our hotel room, he just turned off the lights and went to sleep. No, I did not feel relieved. I felt stuck. It's not because he did not touch me. Didn't even know anything about sex back then. What hurt me was the fact that the man I married could not even start a conversation with me. I tried talking to him on our way to the hotel that night, but I could just tell that his replies were forced and uninterested. He did not even tell me good night before he laid down on the bed and fell asleep that night. As a girl who was already quite damaged, I felt like I had made the biggest decision of my life by marrying a stranger. Do you know what the worst part was? It was not even my decision at all. My parents chose him for me. When Vikram and I moved to Australia tried to start a new life there. Even though I was quite disappointed in the husband I got, I was determined to make our marriage work. I tried starting conversations with him, making jokes, and even disturbing him while he was busy working. So this worked for a while. And he warmed up to me a little. When I say he warmed up, I meant in his own little way. He would answer my questions, laugh at my jokes, and lean into my touches with time. We were friendly enough to start sleeping together. That was how I got my 2 wonderful children. Vikram and I would have sex 3 times a week or more if we wanted. We'd also talk about random things and joke with each other, but that was it. He was no longer a stranger physically and mentally, but emotionally he was. For many months, I felt like I was greedy for not feeling complete. I felt like he was trying his best to warm up to me, yet I was the one who wasn't satisfied. I actually felt guilty for not being happy. It's something I struggled with internally for a long time. I actually began to hate myself because I was a housewife who just stayed home and awaited her husband's return just so she could feel validated. I saw my daughter and son brought some light into my life when they were born. Their birth were 2 years apart, but they play like twins. I love them with every single vein in me. They stopped my emotional problems for a while, but even that was temporary. When they were old enough to go to school, my loneliness came back. I would dwell in my sad thoughts for hours before they returned. What I struggled most with was understanding what love meant. I grew up without love, so I could never really understand what it was or recognize when I was at the receiving end of it. For a long time, I thought my husband loved me and I loved him too, but one day I realized that all we had was an understanding, and understand that we were stuck together for life. So we better not make each other's life difficult. That was when I made my decision. I took the first independent step of my whole life 2 years ago when my husband came back from work, and I told him I wanted to start going to college. He was surprised at my request and did not even take me seriously until I told him the same thing 2 days later. At first, he tried to talk me out of it and talk about how the children needed me, but I told him the children had school and extra lessons. He told me that he earned enough to take us a lifetime, so I should not bother getting into college. He insisted that college was important for me, and it was not about getting a career to make money. After a lot of deliberation and a series of phone calls, yes, he called my parents and his parents to ask for permission. I was finally allowed to start college. When I started college, a part of me felt light and happy. I was already 30 then, but I did not care. I now had something to look forward to every day. I made new friends and learned to laugh a little. College felt like a place to spread my wings and fly as high as I wanted. One day after classes, a guy named Freed, 1828, offered to give me a lift. I politely declined because I already had a car that was designated to drive me home, but Fred was not ready to take no for an answer. He got out of his car and practically begged me to let him give me a ride. I found the situation funny and ridiculous, so I declined once again and left in my designated car. For that day, Fred kept offering me a ride home. At some point, after 2 weeks, I sent my car back and gave in. Feed was so happy. There had been a huge smile on his face. We chatted during the ride home and honestly felt nice to meet someone new. Fred drove me home the weeks that followed after that. It was not a problem because Vikram was not usually home till 9 p.m. in the night. I closed from college at 5 p.m. Fred and I became friends after 1 month of getting to know each other. It felt nice to have a friend, someone to talk to, and someone who actually wanted to know you without a reason behind it. I could tell that there was a physical attraction between us, but I tried to brush it off because I was still very married to Vikram. I really did, but for a woman who had been deprived of real love all her life, my resistance was not strong enough. One day, Fred and I kissed in this car. From that day on, we exchanged kisses in the car, from kisses to tight hugs, then smooching on day sex. The day it happened, I'd been so shocked that I did not move for a long time. Yes, it happened in his car. It was at that moment I realized I really didn't love my husband, because after it happened, I did not feel any form of regret or shame. I felt liberated and full. I liked it so much I was not afraid to do it again. Fine. It's not something I'm ashamed of saying because I deserve to be happy. I deserve to live a content life. Fred and I continued our secret relationship for 1 more year. I told him I was married long before we got intimate, but he didn't really care. He was okay with the secret moments we shared. Began to smile more and live life more purposefully thanks to Fred, but one day it all broke into pieces. On this fateful day, My designated driver came to pick me up. It was an unusual occurrence because I had asked him to stop coming since I usually went home with Fred. The driver insisted and told me he had to drive me home that day. Fred had invited me to his house, so I did not want to disappoint him. I refused to follow my driver and went to Fred's house. My husband was on a business trip and my kids were at Vikram's sister's place, so I did not plan on going back home. Fred cooked dinner for both of us, lit candles, and played some very nice music. It felt like I was in a dream, and to be honest, I didn't really want to wake up. I felt genuinely happy after a long time. I liked the feeling of content I had in that moment. I shared with Fred. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but everything that happened to me in my life had been wrong. I wanted to be selfish for once in my life. I wanted to choose myself, and I did just that. Had a passionate night with a man that was not my husband. The next morning, I woke up in Fred's t-shirt. I was thirsty and went to grab some water to drink from the kitchen. I remember hearing a knock on the door. And when I opened the door, I was shocked to see Vikram standing there. He looked like he could kill me at that moment. I was too shocked to move or say a word. I could see the anger in his eyes that day. The way he glared at me and pushed me out of the way. Fred ran downstairs to see what was happening, and that was when he met Vikram. Vikram punched Fred till he was bleeding. I had been so scared that I started to scream. I got the shock of my life when I saw my designated driver at the door with 2 policemen. That was when everything seemed to make sense. I realized that Vikram must have noticed that I no longer used my designated driver, so started to keep an eye on me. He lied that he was going on a business trip. He just wanted to follow me and catch me red-handed. The driver had followed Fred's car the night before and told Vikram the address. It was a trap. Vikram found out I was cheating on him, so he set a trap for me and Fred. Vikram always wanted to be in control no matter what. I cheated and got out of his control, so he wanted to catch me in the act his own way. I thought that was all, but Vikram had me and Fred arrested. I know some of you might wonder who gets arrested for cheating. Well, Fred and I got arrested, but it was not for cheating. The police found drugs in Fred's garden and in his car, so we were arrested for the illegal possession of drugs. Of course, it was all framed by Vikram. Fred had a heart condition and could not even smoke. How did drugs suddenly appears, and then Vikram was right there to notice it. Our explanations fell on deaf ears and we were detained for 3 days. It was Fred's friend that got us out on bail. That was 2 months ago. Vikram sent me packing and I was served with divorce papers immediately. The only thing I'm worried about now is my children. They mean a lot to me. I don't want Vikram to get full custody in court. What should I do? Should I beg him to take me back for the sake of my children? Please help me. Update. So it's been a year and I decided to add an update since a lot of people read my story. Fred and I are still together. I live with him. I'm still in college trying to finish up and get a job. Fred has been helpful and he's been taking good care of me. Vikram tried his best to get full custody of our children. He even used his wealth, but the court concluded that the children needed me in their lives. We now co-parent cordially and try to maintain a civil relationship for our children. My parents called me just to disown me over the phone when they found out what happened, but I didn't really care. They were never really loving parents to begin with. The first few months after getting caught were horrible, but I took each day seriously and fought my way out. My life is not perfect, but at least for the first time in my whole existence, I chose myself. That's all that matters to me. I now understand what care and love means. I'd rather live a fulfilled life with nothing than an empty one with everything. I lost my wealthy husband, but I got my peace and happiness, which is priceless. I hope my journey to freedom inspires someone else. The journey ends here, guys. Bye.